To become Cincinnati's King of the Block, a pair of powerful rivals squaring off in one of the nation's hottest rivalries.
It's just going to be crazy. There's going to be a lot of people there, and the intensity is going to be real high. Our whole team's going to be up. I know that, and I'm sure they'll be up too.
This New Jersey senior in Cincinnati, Ohio. Welcome to ESPN's Scholastic Sports America, the only show bringing you national coverage of high school sports.
ESPN presents the youth of America doing their best on Scholastic Sports America. ESPN Scholastic Sports America is brought to you by McDonald's. It's a good time for the great taste of McDonald's. By the Coca-Cola Company and your local Coca-Cola bottlers. And by the U.S. Army. Learn to get an edge on life. Be all you can be.
This trophy goes to the King of the Block, the winner of the arch-rival Princeton-Moeller game. The red side is for the Vikings of Princeton, ranked #1 in the city of Cincinnati, #1 in Ohio, and in the top 10 nationally.
I don't think anyone expected us to be undefeated at this point in the season, coming off a championship season.
We have the most points of anyone really right now in the state of Ohio in the computer system. So we're assured of a playoff berth regardless of whether we win or lose.
The blue side is for the Crusaders of Moeller. Moeller has been the winningest team in the state the last 2 decades, winner of 4 national championships and the Ohio State champion 7 times.
We have good players that want to work hard. I wouldn't say that, you know, we're in the last 3 or 4 years overly talented as far as, you know, great players. We have our share.
The team's been together for 3 years, and for 3 years we've been all working towards the same goal, and that's the state championship.
The winner of this trophy has gone on to win the Ohio State Championship 10 out of the last 13 years.
North 34 on 1, North 34 on 1.
Moeller went into the game this year 8-1, needing a victory.
We almost have to win it to be in the playoffs. We would have a chance to be in it if we didn't win it, but it would be something that we'd have to wait for other teams to do for us, and that isn't a very good omen.
The whole season kind of boils down to this game. It's where everybody comes out to see it. It's everybody's game. And I'm very emotional because of the loss last year, and we all played our hearts out. So that just makes it even more emotional for this year.
Every year there's a lot riding on this one game, but it remains a friendly rivalry.
It's a friendly game, but the game itself, you know, it's very intense. But after the game, you know, we shake hands with them, and it's really a friendly contest.
It's real intense. I mean, you can see it before the game and really during the game, but after the game with friends, it's not a hate rivalry.
Moeller's winning tradition has fostered a young fan club. They predict a Moeller win.
I predict Moeller 35, Princeton 24. Yeah, score. Yeah.
Everyone had their own idea of the game's outcome.
I think the game will be won by defense, and I think the game will be won by who runs the ball the best.
They're going to come out pass, and we're going to pick at least 3 off the first half, probably 4 in the second half.
I want the quarterback, you know. I'm have his name on my pants, you know, Friday, so I got to get him.
Game day at Moeller looks like most days. The usual beat Princeton signs, calmness in the school, until, of course, you enter the gym. Gymnasium just a few miles from Moeller, the excitement meter is pegged. Princeton gets itself into a football state of mind. All week long, the faculty at Princeton held a contest, the King of the Block Trophy Hunt. Clues were given every morning as to the location of the trophy. The finder received this sweatshirt. 3 hours later, the mood in the Moeller locker room was more serious.
It's a big game. They all are, because you're in it. Good luck. God bless.
The local press predicted an air attack. The stats on the starting quarterbacks were almost identical. After 9 games, Casey Fisher had thrown for 1,682 yards. Mattress had thrown 1 yard short of that in the same number of games.
Over 11,000 people showed up here tonight, rain and all, to cheer on their favorite teams here at Nippert Stadium of the University of Cincinnati. Both teams are facing something new tonight, AstroTurf. But Princeton says no problem. They've got a fast team, and AstroTurf helps to accentuate their speed. And Moeller doesn't mind either. Their athletic director said here in Ohio in the fall, if it's not AstroTurf, it's mud. Take your pick. Now, if you don't think this is serious business, take a look at this program book. This is the Moeller program book, 1.5 pounds, 250 pages. This is Ohio high school football at its best.
The hype was over, and the 27th meeting of these two schools was underway. Moeller's defense, led by Mike Nichols, wasted no time, sacking John Mattress early in the first quarter. Casey Fisher had no trouble starting his attack, hitting Chris Jenkins across the middle. The attack continued when he found running back Mike Alexa, who put Moeller within reach. The very next play, Craig Griffey, son of former Cincinnati Red Ken Griffey, runs for a 4-yard touchdown and puts Moeller on top 7-0. In the second quarter, Princeton changes their game and goes to the run. Craig Thompson finds a hole in the Moeller line. That run helps to set up this 1-yard touchdown by John Mattress. With the score tied at 7 and no let-up in the rain, the band took the field. In the second half, the air attack by Fisher was unstoppable.
Fisher dropping back with a protected good super. No, Steve, he's got a wide open receiver. That's up to 30. That's up to the 30-yard line. I'm going to give him the 29-yard line. Wide out goes Ives. Nucci's the lone back. This Fisher back in the pocket. Here comes the pressure. Throws deep downfield. He's got out the 10. He's at the 9-yard line.
Mike Alexa picked up 5 of his 69 yards on this run and set up Craig Griffey for his second touchdown of the game with 34 seconds left in the third period. The score 14-7. Fisher threw a 22-yard pass to Joe Topher in the corner of the end zone with 6:51 left to put Moeller up 21-7. Princeton still had hope after Chris Woods intercepted a Fisher pass with 2:44 to play. Mattress scrambled out of the pocket and found receiver Dan Rogers with only 1:36 on the clock. But it was too little, too late.
This is the biggest win of my life. I don't know what to say. This is incredible. It's the best feeling. I can't even describe it.
Moeller stopped Princeton's 14-game winning streak and became this year's King of the Block. But as sure as there is high school football in Ohio, these two powerhouses will be slugging it out for King of the Block trophy next year.
So the series now stands. Moeller has won 20 games, Princeton just 6. A big win for the Crusaders over last year's defending state champs. They handed Princeton their first defeat of the season, and that puts them in the playoffs where they could possibly meet up with Princeton again. We wish both teams all the best. Well, coming up, a high school student...
And welcome again to High School Highlights, where today we are going to show you 3 different high school athletic programs that excel in more ways than one. First, we go to Cincinnati, Ohio, to look at Moeller High School's football program. Moeller is considered to be one of the top, if not the top, high school football program in the country. That program was put together by Jerry Faust, now head football coach at Notre Dame. Moeller takes a big-time approach to athletics, but they also take a big-time approach to academics. You see, at Moeller High School, students don't survive on a sports-only diet. Studies are taken seriously. Moeller excels in athletics, academics, and in building character. Lee Martin has more on Moeller High School.
When you think of Cincinnati in sports, you think of the Reds, the Bengals, and Riverfront. But you can't talk about Cincinnati sports without mentioning Moeller High School. Moeller is an all-boys Catholic school located just outside of Cincinnati, and it's a home of the Fighting Crusaders football team, perhaps the most famous high school football team in the country. Athletic Director Jeff Lieber talks about how it all got started and about the man most responsible for Moeller's notoriety, Jerry Faust.
In 1959, Moeller opened his doors to a freshman class, and Jerry was the first football coach. He was, one of the first teachers hired at the time, and he built like the whole program, athletic program, from scratch. I mean, he laid the tile in the locker room and just did everything, and then acquired help and friends along the way. But 4 years later, he was 9-1. It was his first varsity football team, and in the 21 years, we've lost a total of 18 football games. And since the playoffs began in Ohio, we've won. I lose track, to be honest. I think we've won 7 Ohio State championships since 1973, and like 5 national championships. And I think we've lost 1 regular season game since 1972.
The weight room in Moeller High School. Even some colleges would envy the size of this place. Machine weights, free weights, chin-up bars. Some might call this an extravagant spending of tuition, but the Moeller Athletic Department is financially independent.
Athletically, we're probably a little different than most schools, but our athletic department is completely self-sufficient. It has to raise all its own funds, and we pay for everything, light, heat, water, rent on our building space, transportation, equipment, insurance, medical fees, whatever it is. And so that's one of the areas that I get into, but gate receipts help, somewhat, but we have a program that has 350 advertisers in it, and we do a lot of other things that, to help run 11 sports with 700 students participating in those sports. So it's a pretty encompassing program. Football gets the attention, but they're all very competitive and very good.
Extravagance is not in the vocabulary at Moeller. For example, Liebert believes that it's more important to spend money to get what is necessary to make you the best, not to spend money to showcase the things that are the trinkets of your success. With the emphasis on athletics at Moeller, football especially, some might wonder if the students are shortchanged on the academic side of school. Liebert challenges anyone to question the blending of athletics and academics at the school.
First of all, our football has gained notoriety and attention, but it exemplifies the school. One of the mottos of the school is the standard is excellence, and we believe that we're equally strong in the classroom or anywhere, and we would invite anybody to come and spend a day with us while school's in session and see the quality of our students and the way they handle themselves.
Moeller has supplied 6 NFL teams and 2 USFL teams with players, but one of the most famous Moeller graduates doesn't even play football. He is Buddy Bell of the Texas Rangers.
I enjoyed my 4 years there. I only played football my first 2 years there, and then I played basketball and baseball, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. The instructors that I had, the people that I met have become friends for life, and high school was a lot of fun there. The academics are high, and it's a thrill to go there.
Besides those good feelings, Bell took a few other things with him when he left Moeller.
I still have my my school jacket. I don't know. I think that just the competitive part. I feel like I'm still as competitive as ever, and I had to be at the time. And when I was going to school there, I always felt like there was an underclassman behind me ready to take my job, and I still feel the same way here. I've been playing 13 years here, and I feel like there's always some underclassman ready to take my job. So athletically, that's what I took from the school, and I also took the pleasures that I had, the friendships that I have and still have.
The key word at Moeller High School is perspective. Academics and athletics are but the tools with which the staff at Moeller teaches self-discipline and a positive attitude that these young men can carry throughout their lives.
I think this Moeller High School, above all, gives a student that leaves it a positive outlook on life and a positive outlook on himself, and that's really what we're trying to teach at Moeller High School. It's You know, it's the attitude that if you work hard enough at something that you can succeed at that skill or job or whatever it might be, and it's you know, it's visible in our football program, and it's not so visible maybe in the other things, but it exists in the other things, and we want them to take, you know, a positive Christian attitude out of the school, that they can, you know, given any circumstances, they can attack those circumstances and you know, meet the challenges that are ahead of later on in life. And we spend a great deal of our time in our sports program talking to our young men about that. I mean, we feel we teach a little bit more than just the skills that they need in a given sport.
Now let's go back to Todd Donahoe.
Thank you, Lee.
Maybe the biggest Cincinnati sports dynasty of all, but boy, Cincinnati's had plenty of them just in your lifetime, haven't they?
Well, the Reds of the 70s, and of course Purcell football back in the 50s, and Roger Bacon in the 60s. And Nick, to be honest with you, I think the Bengals might be coming up with a dynasty right now. I said that on national TV last year because they were in the Super Bowl last year, and they got a good chance of going all the way this year. And they're so young, and that's what it takes to build a dynasty, young and desire. And
you remember that Bentley Post dynasty too, back in the 40s.
Joe Hawk had all those great teams, and that was in the 40s and early 50s. And there's been so many around here, we as fans have really been spoiled in this area.
Anytime there's a dynasty, people start pointing fingers at it. They start wanting to say, let's break it up, you know, let's break them up, and let's see what's going on here. And there must be something wrong going on. We're talking about Moeller, of course, Moeller and the great dynasty they have had. And people want to point at them and say, well, they must be doing something wrong over there.
Well, in the next couple of years, Nick, I was talking to Coach Clowney yesterday, and they're going to have problems getting games because nobody wants to play them. Like Princeton's going to play them next year for the last time. A couple of teams up in Cleveland don't want to play them anymore, and it's going to be tough for Moeller to get games. With this new setup for the playoffs, it's going to be hard. Why should you want to play Moeller twice? Because they blow you out, you don't make the playoffs. But it's a tough situation, and it's just something that if I was a Massillon or a Canton McKinley or somebody, an Alliance or somebody like that, a football power, I would want to play Moeller. I would want to go after the best to try to prove that I can beat the best.
But your job in this case was to go out there and see if you could find out what made it happen for them.
They got such a tradition out there. When you walk in the place, you walk in right in the school yesterday, the first thing you see is 4 real nice ladies selling state champion sweatshirts, Moeller sweatshirts. And just everybody you talk to, they just have such an atmosphere, just such a winning atmosphere. I've never been to South Bend at Notre Dame, but I can't see much difference in walking into Moeller or walking into Notre Dame. Just there's more people.
We'll have to ask Jerry about that, huh?
He was there yesterday.
In the meantime, let's take a look at this report from Pete Rose on Moeller.
When you think about Moeller High School, you think about football, state championships, national rankings, and of course, Jerry Faust. In the past 8 years, Moeller has won the state championship 6 times and been rated #1 nationally 5 times. In the past 3 years, they've had 3 different coaches while losing 1 game. The question is, how do they do it?
They work hard, and they work harder than anybody else. And I think our coaching staff works harder than anybody else. And I think that's a big part of it.
But besides hard work, desire, talent, and almost year-round workout.
Family feeling here is a big part of it, and there's a lot of love in this place. And I think that really is, you know, people haven't really talked about that much, but the Moeller family means a lot to us.
I think really Notre Dame is a big Moeller, and I think Moeller is a small Notre Dame.
A lot of people think that. I think that's what Jerry thought. I don't think he would have won anywhere else but Notre Dame because he thought it was a big Moeller.
Academics here are important, very important. In fact, college recruiters come from coast to coast to evaluate performances in the classroom as well as on the field.
Their grades mean a lot to them. Academically, the atmosphere here is...
You really stress that, huh?
Sure, you got to stress it. And they're very concerned about academics. Like Hiawatha is being recruited right now, and you know, I won't bring him out of any class, but 6th grade study hard at the end of the day. I mean, because he just, you know, he needs to be in that class.
Back in the 50s, Purcell was king. It was Roger Bacon in the 60s. But by the 70s, Moeller became the team no one could beat. In fact, recently, some schools have said they don't want to play Moeller anymore. Take the Elder Panthers. This year they were 7-3, which is good enough for 3rd place in the GCL. How do they feel about playing against the Moeller dynasty?
Well, it's obviously challenging. The kids look forward to it. Usually there's a very large crowd, and it's a lot of fun to be in. We haven't done as well as we'd like, but it's frustrating.
Moeller has a reputation nationwide as a powerhouse. That's what brought Shane Bullough to the Crusaders.
We've been here 3 years now, and When I decided to come with the Cincinnati Bengals and work for the Browns and Coach Greg, my boy was in 9th grade at that time. That's the first year that he had played high school football. He had played football. And he had mentioned to me, he said, "Dad, boy, I sure would like to move into the Moeller district." And I said, "Moeller, what do you know about Moeller?" He said, "Well, my high school coach heard Coach Fouts speak at a clinic, and he said, look at these books," and he had books on Moeller High School, and of course I had known him because I had recruited in the area, and I said, okay. I said, well, that's what we'll do. And so we went over there and we talked to the father first of all, the principal, and then we went and talked to Jerry, and they had their winter program going, and he saw them practice, and Jerry allowed him to follow the sophomores, the freshmen at that time who would be sophomores with him around to the different stations, and he spent about an hour looking at the lifting weights and program and so forth like that. And then I asked him what he thought. He said, "Well, Dad," he said, "I think I'm, you know, a good enough athlete to play with these guys." He said, and he really liked what he liked the discipline of the school. He liked the educational part of it, and he just liked the whole atmosphere.
I can't really describe it. You're told you're the #1 high school in the country, and you don't just you're not just given that. You got to earn every bit of that, and you get to be around great people like Mr. Clowney, the head coach, and all the assistant coaches, and you get a lot of publicity, and you play with a family. Moeller is a family.
Moeller is a family.
That's an all-state linebacker talking right there.
Pete, they're losing 41 seniors. Is this the end of the dynasty?
No, Nick, you know, they blow so many teams out that the sophomores and the freshmen and the juniors get to play so much. They get so much experience that they grow up learning how to win. Elder, who had a real good year this year, is going to lose 34 seniors, and Moeller dresses out 80 players. So they'll have over half of them coming, just about half of them coming back next year.
Those 41 seniors, you wanted to make a point about that. Quite a few of them are going to be going to college, aren't they?
Like I said earlier, that in the last 8 years, they won 6 state titles, and they've got 160 scholarships for their athletes in the last 8 years. And Coach Clowney told me that probably 25 of the 41 seniors that get college educations this year.
No wonder the kids want to play there.
If my kid could play football, I'd want him to go there.
Thanks very much, Pete. We'll be back in a moment.
This old look and an old star. They're winning with Francisco. Now, it's unfair to call a junior in high school old, but DeJuan Francisco already has rushed for 1,000 yards. He did that as a sophomore. This year, averaging 7 yards per carry. But now DeJuan faces that age-old pressure of expectations. We say, hey, he's gifted with that great Moeller offensive line. He should get 150 per game. But that type of unfair pressure has driven more than one player out of his game, but not DeJuan.
You know, he's handled the pressure well. He's a real game situation type player. I think he really thrives on a team that's supposed to put him out or going to stop him, and you know, and he rises to the occasion.
You know, as far as 150 yards a game or whatever, that all depends on how the line is, you know, performing that night. And so far, the line has been performing well. So it's been, you know, made it possible for me to get my 150 yards or whatever.
How does it feel, though, being a primary man on the #1 team in the country?
You're a marked man. You're a marked man. And it seems like teams are keen on you. I mean, you know, like they know where you're going and who's going to get the ball, but that's football. You just have to deal with it.
Well, DeJuan is almost sure to catch Moeller's all-time rushing leader before he graduates in '85. The all-time rushing leader, his brother Hiawatha. Now, seen right here last year's action, you know, he may catch his brother as far as yards go, but he says he'll never catch his brother in actuality.
Hiawatha's, he's my idol, and you can never be better than your idol because your idol is just so high above you. You just like to follow his footsteps as much as possible.
Of course, Hiawatha's now at Notre Dame. You see that DeJuan has even switched jerseys this year to wear the same number his brother wore when he was at Moeller. Other star runners, Tyrone Berry, Rob Williams, Melvin Miles, Van Shelton. You got Simpson and Brown at Princeton, many, many more. Greater Cincinnati's rich tradition of high school football continues. I know I've missed some people. Don't mean to slight them.
It was supposed to be a championship game for the Illinois State title, but East St. Louis turned it into a laugher. When the damage was done, the Flyers had themselves a 46-0 victory.
With that win, the nation recognized the Flyers of East St. Louis as the best high school football team in the country. But this team right across the river from St. Louis, Missouri has been playing great high school football for the last decade.
13, 14, east side. Go. Tell that guy he lost his spot on that. Come on back. The thing that I deal with is football. and I want to be judged by how they play and how they perform and how they conduct themselves as young men. See, that's where the buck stops with me.
And with that philosophy, Coach Bob Shannon's won 95 out of 110 games the last 10 seasons. And that includes 40 straight and 3 state titles in a row.
Good.
You look at the facility and you wonder how East St. Louis is a national power. Then you look at the players and you understand why.
You don't have to have great facilities to block and tackle, you know, and we think that you win on the football field.
Coming back as a champ is nothing new at East St. Louis. Defending a national title, though, is something else.
We have to be at our best every game. There's going to be a lot of teams that shooting to knock us off.
Being on #1 team in the nation, it's always going to be hard trying to live up to what the last team did.
Hey, it's just like a play. You on stage now. You know, you got the leading role, and you have to perform.
And that's the reason they're picked to defend. In East St. Louis, Illinois, I'm Tom Verrato, Channel 11 News Nightbeat. Autumn in LaGrange, Georgia means one thing.
All right, good job, Blue. Yeah, good job, Blue.
There's a tremendous amount of tradition that every coach that comes here must follow.
Gary Guthrie inherited that tradition 2 years ago. Along with it came players who grew up watching LaGrange win. And now, it's their turn to be winners.
Try to develop a complete person, somebody that's able to adapt to a changing situation, whether it be on the football field or whether it be in the classroom or in the job world.
This is the grotto at Cincinnati Moeller All-Boys Catholic High School. For 18 seasons, Coach Jerry Faust knelt his troops right here and won 90% of their ball games. Faust left to coach Notre Dame 6 seasons ago, but the winning at Moeller still continues today.
Moeller is football in the state of Ohio. 7 of the last 10 titles belong to the Crusaders, and chances are, if you've ever heard of high school football, you've heard of Moeller.
You know, there's a lot of people, oh yeah, we've heard about Moeller, we've heard about this, and you know, that sort of gets in your blood, and you want to be representative of what the Moeller name means.
The Moeller name means winning. In 23 years, the Crusaders have only lost 21 times. So quarterback Scott Schaffner already knows what his job is this season.
There's a sense of pride at the school that you know that when you go out on the field that people are watching you and you're supposed to do well, you're supposed to succeed, and you're supposed to win. So I think it's more of an attitude than anything else that makes us different.
It's also the attitude that keeps them nationally ranked year in and year out. In Cincinnati, I'm Tom Verrato, Channel 11 News Nightbeat. There's a very simple reason why North Hills always seems to be on top.
We just grow better football players here in the North Hills.
Maybe they do, but Coach Jack McCurry still knows how to get the most out of them.
It's a good call.
For 7 straight seasons, the Indians have made the playoffs. Now that's the kind of stuff traditions are made of.
The kids have believe in it. They know the kids that have gone before them, what they've done and how they work to get there, and they do the same things.
Joe Smithco was one of those young believers. Today, he runs the #3 ranked team in the country.
Man, I used to look and watch and just think someday maybe, not thinking quarterback, any position, just get on the field.
You can't put your finger on it, but there's a certain something that schools like North Hills and Moeller, LaGrange, and East St. Louis all have in common. It's a cross between confidence and cockiness, pride and tradition. And in the preseason, it enables them to be ranked some of the best in the country. How well they have it, how well they keep it during the course of the season, determines who'll be #1 in the nation when it's all said and done. At North Hills High School, I'm Tom Verrato, Channel 11 News Nightbeat.
Guy who followed a legend. It sounds confusing, but it isn't. Back in a second. We thought you'd enjoy meeting a guy who was following a guy who followed a legend. So tonight, Sports Monday takes you to Montgomery and new Moeller head coach Steve Kalani.
People who don't know Coach Kalani, what is there about you that should make this program as successful in the next several years as it has been in the past?
Well, I don't think it's really one person. I think it's our staff has worked very hard this summer. I think the biggest thing that I'm concerned with is being prepared, and we don't lose any games because we've been out-coached or because we're unprepared. If we get beat because personnel is better than we are, then so be it.
I hear around Montgomery and really around the city that you're a very intense coach, that it's not difficult for you to get the players' attention, and that goes back to Jerry. But the guy in between you didn't have the reputation of being that way. Am I pretty well on the right track there?
Well, I think everybody has to coach the way their personality is. I mean, my personality, I'm very emotional. You know, I don't think there's a lot of people that do it a lot of different ways. There's a lot of great coaches that are not very emotional. There are some good ones that are emotional. So I think you've got to do what you are. I've got to be Steve Kalani, and that's what I'm going to be.
Steve, do you feel most comfortable working with the defense? Because most recently, you were coordinating defense here at Moeller, although back a few years you worked the offense.
Well, I've been on the defense side of the ball most of my coaching career. Since I've switched over this year, a lot of the defensive knowledge that I've gotten over the years has really helped me offensively. So, you know, we'll see how it goes. I mean, you know, I'm excited about our offense. I think that we've put a lot of things together that, you know, that are going to be good for us, and we'll just have to see how it goes, but I feel confident about it.
Will you still operate with a widely split offensive line and a very diversified attack?
We'll be, we won't run out of as many formations. We've cut the number of plays that we have down. We'll still be somewhat diversified. We've probably got about 6 or 7 formations we'll run out of, and we have, you know, probably about 16 running plays, and we're going to try to attack the whole front in every formation we're in, and that's what we looked at over the summer, and we feel that's what we have to do.
You've cut back because you'd rather do those 25 to 30 plays better than to have 50 or 60 that you're just okay at?
I'd rather do 10 or 12 for a game and execute them correctly than have 25 in the offense and wind up only running 10 in a game. So why wind up practicing the other 15 if you're not going to run them?
Steve, you know, that philosophy goes back to Paul Brown's early days. He worked on one play and one play and one play until you get that one play right, and then move to something else like it's second nature to you.
Well, our offense is, you know, we try to tie everything in together. Everything is supposed to look the same, and you know, our philosophy is that we have to execute, and we have to minimize our penalties, and we have the personnel, I feel, to do it. So it really comes down to what kind of execution we have, is kind of what kind of football team we're going to have.
Steve, you're expected to win here. Moeller's tradition, you almost never lose. It's a surprise. It's a major upset when you lose, though your schedule is big time, without any question. Do you like the pressure side of it, being in charge now after Fuzzy and Botch?
Well, you know, as far as our schedule is concerned, we play a great schedule, and we have great people. And, you know, I really think that, you know, I'm very blessed. I'm in, you know, one of probably the better programs in the state of Ohio, maybe the country. And, you know, I have the personnel to win. I think that's all coaches really want. If they have the players, then, you know, there's really no excuses. So, you know, if you have the players, then, you know, you should be able to win. And we hope, we think that we're going to.
I believe it, Steve. Finally this evening, a number of
his old team along. He, of course, the head coach now at Notre Dame. He had a lot to cheer about. This is Big Dave Springmeyer, the senior fullback, who plowed straight over the middle for a touchdown. And now this is John Schaefer, the senior quarterback, goes to Hiawatha Francisco. Hiawatha, 207 yards and 17 carries, plus that 16-yard touchdown romp. So again, Moeller gaining the revenge.
Try to stay alive in the playoff hunt against the state's top team, Princeton. Steve Esposito with more.
Anytime Moeller meets Princeton, regardless of the day, regardless of the time of the year, there are going to be a lot of people there. There'll be a lot of red and white, and hopefully there'll be a lot of blue and gold, so it'll be a fantastic ball game tonight.
Moeller and Princeton is always a big game, a game that brings out the maniac in everyone. And school spirit is always a big part of this rivalry, but it runs deeper than just the student body. For example, at Moeller, it's like a fever that consumes the young as well as the old. And the theme is always the same: beat Princeton.
I don't know what they think of us. I know they think we can throw the ball. But I really believe that the key to this game is going to be who rushes the ball the best and who plays the best defense.
Not to be outdone, Princeton had its own pep rally today, a different kind of pep rally, but it all serves the same purpose. And I'll tell you what, if the game tonight is half as entertaining as this stuff, look out.
Yeah, you know, the pep rally, you know, really gets, you know, hyped up, ready to play. And, and I don't know if Moeller has a pep rally like us, but, the pep rally, really has us hyped up now.
You guys going to play volleyball tonight?
We're going. Come out with a win.
For the third straight season, this game carries major playoff implications. Moeller has to win to qualify for postseason play. But while the Crusader faithful are proclaiming their team #1, the players and coaches know full well that they will once again be the underdog against the defending state champs.
I think everybody's going to play it hard no matter what because, you just got a lot on the line, a lot of pride on the line, and, I think they'll be just as motivated as we are.
As I'm speaking to you right now, I'm getting fired up as if I was getting ready to play. I asked Coach, could I suit up for the game, but he said, nah, I couldn't do that. So that type of deal.
So lay back, kick your feet up, and get ready for another Moeller-Princeton showdown. Steve Esposito, Channel 9 Sports.
Next week, and a trip there is on the line for a lot of teams tonight. And like the big game, I mean, this is the Browns and the Bengals, OU, Miami, X and UC, and the Beatles in concert, all rolled into one. I mean, the game is here. Moeller and Princeton play here tonight. And you remember last year, it was Princeton that won the game, 10-7 the final. Now Princeton comes in unbeaten, but Moeller has one blemish. Nothing that Clearasil can erase. It was a loss to Elder this past year, and it's Moeller who's out to prove something.
People were giving us a little bit of respect until we lost Elder, and then everybody just forgot about us. And we're still the same team we were at the beginning of the year, maybe more so.
At Moeller today, the Crusaders were whooping it up. Game time is at 8 sharp at Nippert Stadium. We, of course, will be there.
I love those rallies at the high school gym.
That's right. That's right.
It is everything riding on this one, because if we don't win this one, we turn in our equipment and go home.
They, so to say, have the crown, and we're trying to dethrone them, and it's a lot easier that way than if you're on top of the hill because everybody's trying to get you.
By the way, one stat to keep in mind, when these two teams have played at Nippert Stadium, as they will tonight, Moeller has never been beaten. I'm Tom Brenneman with the Pick Game of the Week.
And we'll be on...
For Nippert Stadium, and now Don's here to give us a forecast of a different kind.
I'll tell you what, I
tonight.
thought Tim did a heck of a job.
He
Two
did.
national powers, he says one should be ranked and everything else.
Did he leave anything for you to say?
We're done. Rob, Deborah?
Thank you very much, Don. We appreciate you.
I should say that Moeller leads the series 19-6. On the other hand, Princeton's won the last 2 times, and they're the state champions. On the other hand, Princeton has never beaten Moeller at Nippert Stadium. Tim.
Really?
Didn't get that in, Tim.
This is going to be a good game, though, is what we're saying.
Yeah, it should be sensational. As you know, Cammie's down there. Moeller's 8-1. Their only loss was to Elder, and while Princeton is 9-0, they nearly lost to Elder. That was a sensational game this season. But Princeton's #1 in the state, Moeller #5. The kickoff's at 8 o'clock, and Cammie Durking is there to bring us up to date on exactly what will be happening between the Vikings and the Crusaders. Hello, Cammie.
Hi, Don. Are we having fun yet? I don't know if I am. It's kind of cold and wet out here. But, of course, once again, this year, this game has become the biggest of the season for both teams. Moeller needing a win tonight to gain a berth into the state playoffs. Princeton already pretty much assured of a berth in the playoffs. However, both teams will be playing for pride tonight. Game time, as you mentioned, 8 o'clock right here at soggy Nippert Stadium. Attention all football fans, you don't want to miss tonight's renewal of the area's top rivalry, Princeton and Moeller. Look for lots of passing from 2 very able quarterbacks. Yesterday we took a close-up look at Johnny Mattress and the rest of the Princeton Vikings. Today we visited Moeller, where Coach Steve Clowney was leading the cheers at a pep rally.
Let's get fired up! Let's get fired up! This is a big game. This is 1988, and we're going to come out and we're going to knock them all the way back to Chester Road.
When the #6 Crusaders take on the #1 and defending state champion Vikings, you can bet Moeller will be fired up and looking to avenge the last 2 years' losses. As Clowney said of tonight's matchup, throw out the records and stats and get ready for some exciting football. Now, Tim tells me that by game time, the temperature should be about 57 degrees. No doubt it'll be raining. It's raining now. You can see for yourself. The weather will certainly be a factor tonight. Nonetheless, this is going to be an exciting game. I'm sure of that. Don?
Yeah, Cammie, have the teams arrived yet? Have you seen them unpile?
No, in fact, I haven't, but there have been some fans that have come in slowly but surely, mostly young kids. But I'll tell you what, I don't think that this stadium is going to be too crowded tonight because of the rain.
I don't believe it.
You don't?
It'll be jammed.
You really think so?
Jammed to the rafters.
All right, well, whatever you say, Don.
All right, Cammie, thank you very much. Of course, Cammie will be down there for the game, and we will have all the highlights and reaction for you tonight at 11 o'clock on Moeller Princeton Renewed. Tonight's the first of a triple header, really, here in the city of Cincinnati as far as football goes, because then tomorrow at 1:30, the undefeated
Well, the Moeller Crusaders are once again dominating the Ohio District 1 playoffs, and they again boast a very high-powered offense. Tonight we're going to meet two cogs in that well-oiled machine, All-American running back Hiawatha Francisco and his little brother DeJuan.
I consider myself the type of runner that's my basic asset is relying on the line, and then once I get past the line of scrimmage, I depend on my speed and my ability to read my blocks.
I'm not a tough runner like my brother. You know, he's the type of guy to run into the holes and he's able to take hits, but I'm the type of guy that likes to run where my blocking is, be able to stay with my blocking as long as possible.
You have just seen two of the best running backs in the state of Ohio, Moeller's Hiawatha and DeJuan Francisco. They're a one-of-a-kind brother combination. Hiawatha, who averages over 100 yards a game, had 105 and a touchdown in last night's 38-0 whitewash of Gahanna. DeJuan, too, had 100-plus yards, most of those coming on an 88-yard touchdown joint. Just a sophomore, DeJuan would one day like to emulate his older brother.
I would like to follow his footsteps because he's a great guy. Not because he's my brother, but I look at him, I say that because I'm looking at him on the football field.
Very close. We, growing up with just my mom, and we have a very tight family at home.
What are some of your goals now? You're a senior. Have you thought about it?
No, sir. My goals right now is to go off to college, get my education in child psychology, and go on after that.
They are indeed two fine young gentlemen. We here at Sports Team wish them the best in all they do. And what they did last night was lead the Moeller Crusaders to victory. With the help of DeJuan and Hiawatha Francisco, the Crusaders whipped Gahanna-Lincoln 38-0 to once again advance to the state finals. They will play Massillon next week in Columbus. So on behalf of Fifth Third Bank and WLWT, congratulations to Moeller. Definitely our sports scene team of the week.
Or football have that story. Talk to Dr. J and Brian Sipe after these words. It's one of those good problems. The Crusaders have a defensive back who's one of the very best in the country, but he's not sure if he's going to continue his football future. Todd Donahoe has that story.
Number 34, Byron Larkin, is an All-American defensive back for Moeller High School. In this, his senior year, he has 7 interceptions in 7 games. During the winter, Byron is a 6-foot, 3-inch all-star player, a guard, averaging 23 points a game for Moeller. So Byron Larkin has a decision to make, to play college football or college basketball. He's good enough to play both.
I'm leaning toward basketball right now.
Why?
Well, I guess that's what I've always wanted to do ever since I was a little kid. I've always played football, like as an off sport, but I've always loved basketball.
Byron could step in and play college football for just about anybody in the country.
Oh, no doubt. He's a Division I player, and he could go anywhere he wanted to and play football in college. I think he would probably be a better Division I football player because he's going to be recruited by all the big schools. Basketball-wise, he'll probably be recruited Division I, but maybe not the best basketball schools in the country.
I'm in a real dilemma right now.
Well, which one do you think you'd be better at, college football or college basketball?
Well, I'm not really sure. I think I probably would do better in basketball, I think, because that's where my heart's at.
What schools are you leaning toward?
Purdue, Vanderbilt, Xavier.
So for Byron Larkin, the question is to follow his best sport, football, or to follow his favorite sport, basketball. Todd Donahoe, Action 5 Sports, tonight.
He's got to like this next guy. The NBA World Champions were in.
The fact that Moeller has won 15 of the 18 previous meetings, well, that really is the reason for the end to these regular season meetings.
I feel that we have an obligation to our team and our fans to try to get to the playoffs each year. We schedule accordingly. We try to play the best teams from around the state that have good records that will, afford us an opportunity to get to the playoffs if we're successful in a year. So therefore, it just doesn't make sense for us to have to play Moeller, the 10th ball game, to get into the playoffs when we really don't have to.
You know, it's a shame that the series is coming to an end because it's always determined the city champion, and now that this will be probably the last time we'll play him in regular season, and from now on he'll sort of be, in a way, a mythical champion of the city.
Well, it'll determine the city champion, then next week who advances in the playoffs. Bengals head...
Warren Couch.
Down there!
There's some who say he has no business on the sidelines.
Supporters. Some say teaching is a matter of philosophy. You need the pat on the back as much as a kick in the tail. Well, Moeller's head basketball coach is a sideline whirlwind. The trouble is, basketball followers cannot decide if the fuming style of Dan Ragland is constructive or destructive. Walt Mayer put a microphone on the coach last Friday during Moeller's game with St. Xavier, and he has the Ragland report.
I'll tell you what, I want to post-read defend it before, then make sure we get it.
Moeller's second-year head basketball coach is Dan Ragland, a wiry 6-footer, Purcell High prepster. He has intensity with a capital I. Like a volcano, always on the verge of erupting.
Our job is to get these guys to be better players, and in turn, they'll be a better team. And there's no other way around it. I just don't think there's any other way to do it except to constantly put them in a position where there's some pressure.
Playing basketball for Ragland is a constant pressure cooker. Witness this activity on the sidelines Friday last against St. Xavier.
Now Martin scored 3 baskets, right? Now, tell you what, you got to get on him tighter as the ball swings around. Come here. And if they call the switch, if you call a switch, the guy that's guarding him at the time's got to make sure he's on him. He scored all their points.
Ragland says there is a method to this apparent madness.
Motivation isn't just slapping people on the back. It's kicking them in the rear once in a while, and sometimes you have to do it. I'm not saying I like to do that.
The reviews are mixed for the Moeller High School basketball coach. While some feel his sideline show is a winner, there are others who feel he should be thrown out of the game.
A lot of people make a much bigger thing out of my yelling and screaming than I think it really is. I guess the bottom line is that when I see a person, a player that I'm coaching, make a mistake, I have to do something to correct it as quickly as possible.
You make a great play, and that's it. You're done for the night, Barry.
I'm trying to get these guys ready for life, and this coaching the game of basketball is the tool I use to get them ready. They're developing, everlasting habits: teamwork, loyalty, dedication.
The 33-year-old Ragland has worked the Bobby Knight basketball camps for 10 years. He's quick to point out Bobby Knight is his hero.
He's the most honest human being I've ever met in my life. He's not going to tell you what you want to hear. If you ask him a question, he's going to tell you what you ought to hear. And that disturbs a lot of people.
It's not just winning. He wants us to do good in all aspects of life.
Yeah. Ragland's top assistant is Joe Cruzy, former Summit Country Day head basketball coach, before he wound up in a cardiac war back in 1980. Cruzy sees a lot of himself, he says, in Dan Ragland.
That's true, and I'm afraid same thing will happen to him. Oftentimes I wondered, was it worth it?
It's my job to see that the things that we want done get done. And I can't worry about how other people feel about that. And I'm not going to.
The Moeller Crusaders take on the Purcell Cavaliers Friday night at Purcell. Take in the sideline show. You be the judge. Walt Mayer, Eyewitness 12 Sports.
Not surprised he's gone to Bobby Knight training camps for about 10 years, right?
Yeah, that he has.
Not surprised at all. Okay, back in just a moment.
Well, tomorrow and Sunday, but today was a big night. GCL. I'll tell you what, they play for keeps in the GCL. Elder packed up the Winnebago, sashayed over to Moeller tonight, It was just like football. It was a pretty packed house tonight at Moeller, too. Coach Hans Fry cheering the Panthers on. Things going all Moeller's way in the first quarter. Moeller off the break. Joe Curran will feed up court. Rob Meyer from 3, and it counts. But back comes Elder. Steve Keller, the all-city quarterback in football. Keller making the transition to football. 3-point shot. He got it. A little bit later on, Dennis Pendergast, another former footballer now on the hardwood. Pendergast will take the drive and put it in for 2. Elder, though, comes back to beat Moeller tonight. The final at Moeller, 67-61. Elder. Mike Berwanger, 19 tonight. LaSalle was a winner. Oak Hill.
Thrive on pressure. I think any young or any person that's in coaching likes to have a certain amount of pressure. And I really don't feel there's that kind of pressure. I don't really approach the game that way. I approach it as just being part of Notre Dame, and great university with great tradition, and just fortunate enough to be a small part of it.
You don't feel the heat yet?
Not yet.
But you will.
Well, I don't know if I ever will. I thought that I made my mind up. I wasn't even going to worry about the season until the first day of practice, and I haven't worried about it. And I don't think I'll worry about it once the season comes, because of the quality young men we have playing for us up there at the University of Notre Dame. And I feel if we're capable of winning, we're going to win the ball game, and that's all you can do. And because we have the quality young men and the quality coaching staff.
Paul, you've certainly been there. Massillon to Ohio State. Can you give the coach some advice about what he's up against here in this first year, particularly the pressure? The heat has to be awesome.
Well, I'd say just do what you always did. I coached Massillon and Ohio State and the Browns and the Bengals, all with the same philosophy and the same beliefs. Just you be Jerry, and everything else will handle itself.
Ladies and gentlemen, Jerry Faust and Paul Brown, football legends. Everybody in the country knows about what they've done, and we know about what they want to keep doing. But more than that, we're going to find out about them personally. What are these guys really like? We'll find out on this program. Historically, it's important. It's important that you pay attention, because we're going to learn a lot about the people on the stage tonight. Jerry Faust and Paul Brown, football legends, tonight on Sidelines on Channel 19. Stay with us. In this program to address perhaps a future legend, or maybe a guy who's facing more heat than the previous two we've talked to here on this Sidelines program. Ted Bacigalupo, you follow the legendary Jerry Faust, and that's the real deal. The guy has done everything that ever has done in high school football, and there's a lot of pressure on you. How do you feel about it?
Well, as the season draws closer, the pressure certainly is beginning to show, and it's there, but I think that the pressure is a self-pressure, and this is something that I'm going to be putting on myself, and I think that the season is going to be a good season, and with God's blessing, I think everything will be fine.
What I've heard is that in the next couple of years, the enthusiasm, the excitement that is and that was Jerry Faust will continue. That your biggest test is going to be in 3 or 4 years, when it's really your program. You buy that?
I think that Jerry would agree that it's Moeller's program. And this is something that we all are a family, and we all work for one thing, and that is the good of the school. And I think that no matter who is the coach, I think it's Moeller's program, not necessarily mine.
Were you involved, Jerry, in the decision-making about who succeeded you?
No, I wasn't really. I was called in, but I let the decision. There were so many qualified people at Moeller, and Ted definitely was one of them, and I felt that the administration should make the decision on that, and even though I thought Ted was very capable, I thought there was others also, and Ted's been with me 13 years, and I felt that that decision should be made by the principal, because they're the ones that were going to work with him, and I felt they made a great choice.
I'll tell you, Coach, Mancuso tells me it's not going to be any different with you there instead of Faust. It's still as tough as ever.
Well, I've made very few changes, and it's just a matter of keeping things organized and keeping the flow going the way it has been. And Jerry has set up a tremendous program at Moeller, and quite a bit of our staff is intact, and the players
They've got something to prove, and they're really looking forward to the season, and I think that things are going to be fine.
But you have a problem in that you won't have the all-world fullback who Jerry cleverly recruited for his own school, huh?
Most of the time our team is a senior team, and we have fine athletes that are ready to step up year after year, and this is part of the program. And every year we graduate 32, 33 seniors, and every one of them are very fine young men and very fine football players.
You don't have Mark Brooks.
Mark Brooks is going to be hard to replace. You don't replace a Mark Brooks every year, but at the same time, we feel we have very capable people to come in and do the job.
Good luck, Ted. Thank you.
Thank you.
Stand up here, partner. Ladies and gentlemen, this guy has won every honor imaginable in high school football. Now it starts all over for him because college is a little different, huh, partner?
Yes, you can say that again.
Do you have any advice or do you have any problems about going to Notre Dame? Is it going to be tough for you to go up there?
Well, I think the problem is really going to be put on myself because I think it's going to be a bit of a problem for Coach Faust as far as they think he's going to show a little favoritism to some of his old players from Moeller. But that'll probably make me work much more hard.
Mark, that is a good point, one that I was going to make, in that if you play your fullback, the first-year coach, and it doesn't work out, you're both going to catch it.
Well, if he plays, it'll work out.
Yeah. You see how he just passed the button.
That is going to be a problem for you.
That's no problem.
You have a lot of kids. You have recruited kids to come up there this year. You have the Nailers and the Olivers.
Well, you got to look at it this way, Tom. Every one of those men proved himself before I got there. Rick Naylor, Harry Oliver, Tony Hunter. Cagle's the only one that hasn't really proven himself, and that's because of the type of offense that they ran before that. But every player at the University of Notre Dame was a proven football player before I got there that was from Moeller High School. And I'm sure the young men coming in, Mike Larkin, Mark Brooks, and Mike Lane, will also prove themselves. And the amazing thing about it, the Notre Dame people love Moeller football players and Moeller students. They just fit right in up there. And the players of the past that have gone to Notre Dame from Moeller have done such a great job that they just expect the Moeller young man to come in and do a great job.
We have some people here in the audience who want to ask questions. We have a question to my right, please. Read it, gentlemen.
Jerry, it's been, 9 months, 8 months now. Aside from the football program, which you're totally dedicated to, what about the institution? Did it stack up to what you had hoped for or expected it to be?
Well, I always had a great respect for the University of Notre Dame, and because we had so many young men that went to school there, and some of them didn't play, but every one of them came back loving the university, and so I always had a great esteem for the university, but after I got there, you can't explain it. It's unbelievable. It's probably, I would say it's the greatest educational institution in the country, bar none, and I know people have gone a lot, and there's a lot of great universities around the country, but Notre Dame's just something special. It does something to a young man or young lady that attends school there. It's just got a uniqueness about itself that gives an air to a young man or young lady after he graduates that can't be replaced.
There isn't any question, Paul, that you can give him your feelings. It hasn't been that long ago, Massillon to Ohio State. In 2 years, you won a national championship with the Buckeyes. Can he do that?
Well, he could do it the first year and be a quicker legend.
Right. But I tried to address the question to you earlier, and I'm going to try again here. Maybe we can get more deeply into it. There's tremendous alumni pressure at a major university. Ohio State and Notre Dame are known throughout the country. There are people who have graduated from that school in every major metropolitan area of the United States. They all know about the football team. Whether they know anything about football or not, they know about the football team. What does he face there now?
Well, I don't think that pressure is going to mean a thing to Jerry. Really, when I went to Ohio State, and it was similar to your going to Notre Dame, that never really entered my mind. I was so, it was almost an obsession, or you can see it. It's coming out all over. You know, he isn't exactly a pessimist.
Right.
It's infectious, and but he knows, he's sure of himself, and I don't think that people who are sure worry about pressure. never entered my mind that we wouldn't do well, and I'm sure it doesn't enter Jerry's mind either.
You won 89% of your games at Massillon, 90% at Moeller.
Well,
so each of you went to the next level with incredible records. And again, I address myself to the question of being able to live up to the level of competition, the level of achievement that you established. You can't look away from it, Paul. Everybody's talking about it.
Well, I think this, that's 90%. That's 9 out of 10.
Is that good enough?
At Ohio State and Notre Dame, there could be years when it wouldn't be. In our case, if we lost to Michigan. You know,
Right.
I never talked about any of the others. But I wouldn't worry about that. I really wouldn't. And the fact that you have alumni who are interested, that just makes it a good job. I was fortunate. I coached at Massillon, Ohio State. They wanted a good team. You can go to high schools or colleges where the faculty will fight you and they don't really want it. Mm-hmm. And he had the same experience with Moeller and now with Notre Dame. They want a good program, and the enthusiasm, the feeling for a program is there. It'll be a good one.
I bet everybody in this room that Jerry Faust could right now recite the 1981 schedule for Notre Dame. I bet you he could. Well, let's find out. Could you go over those 11 games for me and tell me?
Well, we open up with LSU.
Yeah.
And then we play Michigan at Michigan, Purdue at Purdue, Michigan State home, Florida State at home, Southern Cal at home, Navy at home, Georgia Tech at home, Air Force away, Penn State away, and Mike Suter sitting out there, played at Moeller's at Penn State, and then Miami of Florida at Miami of Florida. We got 11 real good football games.
No softies in there.
I don't see any. Do you, Tom?
No, well, hey. I know how that Michigan-Ohio State thing goes, and I know how the Notre Dame-Southern Cal rivalry goes. That's pretty hot.
Well, they're all hot. You know,
Yeah.
they're all good. That's what college football, it's a great thing about it, that with the limitation of 30 scholarships per year, it's brought about equality, just like pro football with the draft system. It's brought about equality, so therefore it's any given day a given team can win, and that's what it makes it so competitive, and it makes it such an interesting sport on the college and pro level because of the way the numbers you have athletic-wise.
Any given Saturday.
Any given Saturday.
Any given Sunday.
Any given Sunday.
Boy, I don't know if I could handle that. When we come back, we'll talk about losing and how these two guys have had to deal with it. Not very often, very, very seldom, but we'll talk about how they deal with losing when Sidelines continues in a minute. We have some future Moeller stars, and maybe future Bengal stars, or Notre Dame, whatever. Pete, you have a question for either of our guests tonight.
Jerry, do you think Moeller can still win when you're gone?
Oh, sure, Pete. I think that for the next 4 years, the talent that's at Moeller and the coaching staff they have at Moeller and the tradition they have there, there's no doubt about it. In fact, I'll be disappointed that if we don't have one of our better football teams with the staff and the way the young men are working this year that Moeller's had in years. And I think a lot of people are misjudging what is going to be on that field come the first Friday night. And they're going to be in for a rude awakening because that's a great football team and a great coaching staff.
Do you remember your last loss, Coach?
Yes, I do very well.
Princeton?
Princeton, 13-12. I remember you said something on television that night. In fact, Tom, I can tell you exactly what you said if you want me to repeat it. He said Moeller must have had a bad year recruiting because they got beat 13-12. Got you in some trouble, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. It got me in a lot of trouble. So let me ask you about that. You've heard that from other people.
What?
That recruiting, no, that recruiting actually happened at Moeller.
No, that's
I didn't invent that.
No, I know.
Okay.
But just, I don't want to get in any debate with you on television, Tom, but...
Oh, sure, let's do it.
Well, you should check your facts out before you say something, and you didn't do a very good job there. but no, seriously, Tom, you know, when I was first started coaching, and Bron Basevich was doing a tremendous job at Roger Bacon, I think it was just one of the things you thought of. Why could a man or why could a team win so consistently? And you would get that idea as one of the prime reasons. And so therefore, when it happened to us, I could understand other people thinking that way. And I think we were above board as best as anybody in the state would be. And but after we got it rolling, kids naturally wanted to come to Moeller High School, and they still want to go there. And for the reason that I think that parents and young men that have a desire to get an education and play football or play sports are going to try to have the best for their child. And naturally, I think that anyone living in the Moeller district has to think about Moeller High School as a school for their education.
Okay, if you'll remember, one of the other points I made during that controversy was that it's unfair for the other schools in this area. The best they can do is second best in the area. Going into their training in the fall, and that leads me to believe that whether you're absolutely 100% on the up and up, and until proven otherwise, that's the way it is, that the other schools, the public schools in Cincinnati, the other schools in the outlying areas in southwestern Ohio, have no chance at all. Not because they're bad necessarily, but because of the advantage of the athletes and maybe the affluence that Moeller reflects, because there's a lot of money in the community around in the Montgomery area and around the school.
Yeah, but I don't think the school has it, to be perfectly honest with you, Tom, or the teaching salaries would have been a lot better, you know, as far as being able to pay the teachers. But I can understand what you're saying there, but, you know, I think it's a state of mind. I think you're second when you think you're second. And if we had thought we were second when Roger Bacon was on top or other schools were on top at those days, then we would have been second. But we felt we were first, and that's the way we approached it, and that's why we became first. And I think it's a state of mind in a lot of people's. Now, I know some people have problems, but we have problems. Our young men have to pay tuition to go to Moeller High School. That's $900 a year. That takes a heck of a sacrifice. I know Mark Brooks had to work every summer for his tuition, and where other young men that would go to another school take the summer off. But Mark felt it was important for him to go to Moeller.
Let me say, excuse me, that there's no question the importance of the discipline and the education that a school like Moeller or Princeton, or I can name 8 or 10 others, provides for young men. There's no argument there. My argument is that maybe the advantage is a little bit too one-sided.
Well, there's disadvantages, too, as far as tuition.
You have to win? People
Well, I think
expect you to win?
important. I think that, Tom, that in your job, if you're not the #1 sportscaster in the area, you're going to be looking for a job. So you have to be the winner, too. And,
right. I think we could get Coach Faust into politics if he isn't already in it, huh? Right? Have a question from the audience, please. Go ahead, yes.
I'm from Moeller High School. I'm not a Catholic priest, but I got 13 children, and I get called father a lot. So, one thing I was going to say this to start with, but considering you're picking on Moeller right now, Tom, you know the Centerville was 57-3 in the last 6 years. I wonder if they chiseled and cheated to get there.
I don't know. What have they done?
I don't think so. They just work harder.
All right.
And Princeton's about the same record in the last 6 years. All losses to Moeller, naturally. But
right.
Anyhow, what I thought, Jerry, when I was going to come up here, I wrote down 4 questions here about Moeller from day one since, you know, we've been there. I don't go to Moeller. I've got boys there. But the 4 questions I wrote down, I put the answers in a sealed envelope here to see if you would come up with the same answers that I have. Would you take that up to Jerry? Okay. Okay. Oh, okay. Now, this envelope's been sealed in Mrs. Wolfuncle's mayonnaise jar for a week on her back porch.
Let's hurry up, please. Quickly.
Okay.
Come on.
All right. Well,
Thank you.
I got the wrong side here. Jerry, what was your greatest win in 21 years at Moeller, the greatest thrilling win you had? And I got that.
Well, there were a lot of great wins, and to single one out would not be fair to the young men, but I could just off the hat pick a couple of them out, and one of them would be the 1975 state championship, our first state championship, where our young men came from behind 7 times during the season. And I think the Roger Bacon game back in 1965, the 17-0 score, would have to rank as 2 of the great games, and I think the Massillon game of this past year would have to rank as 1 because of what Paul Brown had done at Massillon and made it such a tradition and a powerhouse over the past 40 years or so, playing that great Northern Power, you know, and we having the opportunity to play them was a great one. But there were so many of them, to single 1 or 2 out would be an injustice to all the young men that played. Back in 1968, I think we were 6-2-2, And I really felt that our men in that year did probably the best job that you could ask young men to do. And also, I think it was our best coaching job ever when we only had 8 seniors starting that year. And so you can't really go by records or victories, but it's how the young men put out and how the coaches reacted to the situation. So I'd have to leave it at that.
Well, you got the first one right. Well, let's leave it at the first one, all right? Okay. 75 St. Edwards, right? Is that Lakewood St. Ed's?
Right.
Yeah. I used to go to school up around there. You didn't know that, did you?
No.
Thank you.
Hardest loss in 21 years we had. Hardest loss to take.
Well, I think probably the most difficult loss we had, because it's the most recent one, was the Princeton game 13-12. And the reason it was a difficult loss, and you got to give Princeton credit. Pat Mancuso does a great job over there. I think he's one of the finest high school football coaches around, and it's a great tradition, Princeton-Moeller, and it's a close game every year. But we were losing 10-0 at halftime. We came back to take the lead 12-10. And there's a rule in high school football, which I know Paul Brown here would feel the same way I do. The defense jumped off sides, and we went in to score, and we had to take the play over, because the high school rule is that you don't get your choice. You have to take the penalty. And so that would have given us a lead, would have sold the game up, but we didn't get it in, and that was our fault. And Princeton had the determination to take over on a break. We had a bad snap and move the ball down the field and make a field goal with 7 seconds to go, and it was a great victory for Princeton. But it was a very difficult loss for us, because, it felt really bad for the young men, because they really came from behind to come back and take the lead, and then I think I sort of blew it for them there at the end.
A coaching mistake.
Right.
They happen.
They happen a lot.
And you admit them.
Oh, yes.
You go to the kids and tell them that maybe you made a mistake?
The game was my fault, right.
Have you ever done that, Paul?
He's never made any mistakes. That's why he's a legend.
I've made my share. I probably didn't couch it in quite that same language, but I might have said, I wish we would have done something else, or rather than what we did.
Paul Brown and Jerry Faust, our guests. This is Sidelines. Back in a moment. This is a senior athlete who is at Notre Dame and looking at his last year in collegiate football. One of those guys who they look at a little funny because he's a kicker, and they're a little weird sometimes. You know, McAnally's a little unusual, and there have been others, Groza and some of them. Harry Oliver, welcome to the program. You have a question for Coach Faust?
Yeah, I was wondering, Coach, if you'd like to buy some lounge chairs for the kickers, because we're getting tired of standing around out there. No, the actual question is, I was wondering if, or how much of the Moeller tradition you were going to try to incorporate into the Notre Dame program this fall.
Well, I think, Harry, first of all, Notre Dame's tradition is unique, and I don't think you change much of that over the 50 years or 60 years that's been brewing and developing. But you try to implement some of the things that we felt were good at Moeller, and if we get the proper blend, I think it'll be a great experience for all the young men playing at Notre Dame. And I think when you get up there next week, you're going to see some things that that are going to open your eye a little bit, and might bring back some remembrances of your days at Moeller. And I think the young men are going to be very enthusiastic when they see some of the things up there. And you know, I hope you kick a lot of extra points, and I hope you don't have to kick too many field goals this year, Harry, because that means we'll score. All right.
All right. Give me a comparison between Coach Devine and what you know about Jerry.
Well, there's a bit of a difference.
I'd say so. Yeah.
Totally opposite personalities. I think comparisons would be that they're both very knowledgeable about the game. They both have a deep religious aspect to them. But I think it's the way they go about the game. Coach Devine came at, I think, from the standpoint of a professional athlete, the way he handled his players. And Coach has come from high school, and he's going to treat the players a little bit different.
Too much rah-rah, you think?
Not too much. Not too much for Notre Dame.
It's a good time for it, maybe?
It's perfect time. I know all the people I've talked to they absolutely can't wait for the season. It's really an exciting time.
Good luck, Harry. Have
Thanks a lot.
And you have been eating pizza in the dorm and playing cards with the fathers up there, I understand, Coach.
In fact, I won Sunday for the first time with the priest.
How much?
$7.
Oh, boy.
Listen, I want to tell you something. Those priests know how to play poker up there, I'm telling you. I had an easier time here in Cincinnati with my friends.
Can you get too close to the student body and or the athletes by doing things like this? I know you've worked very hard in providing the information about who you are at Notre Dame. You come in with a terrific record and a reputation. You're trying to prove to the people up there that you're Jerry Faust, the coach, and a good guy. You too close to the athletes, too close to the situation? Is it possible?
No, not really, Tom. I think you have to be yourself, like Coach said, and that's my personality. That's the way I am. The reason I'm in coaching is because I love to be around young people, and that's the whole reason I'm in coaching. And if I can help them become better people in life through their next 4 years, and I can help them become a little better football player and represent the university the right way, well, then I feel I'm doing my job. Harry Oliver is a great example. I had the fortunes of coaching him at Moeller, same with Rick here, and they're two tremendous young men besides being athletes. And I think that's important. Same with Mark. And I don't know if there's any other ones in the audience that are at Notre Dame, but those three men were at Moeller and Notre Dame, and they're quality people. And to me, that's more important than their quality athletic ability. And I have to say the same about Mike Suter. It's up at Penn State.
There's any question that the toughest thing about Notre Dame is deciding who you don't want to recruit, because there have to be 50 to 100 blue-chip athletes that you could recruit every year. Same at Ohio State, I think, and Southern Cal and the other 5 or 6 major universities in the country. So you had to decide that Mark Brooks was one of those guys that would be a quality player without question, or it comes back to you that you picked the wrong blue-chip athlete.
Well, first of all, there wasn't any decision on Mark Brooks. There's no ifs, ands, and buts about Mark Brooks as far as a person and as an athlete.
But you see my point.
Yes, I see your point. And the thing is that the best way to explain to you, you really have to be there, Tom. I'd say that there's 20% of the athletes in the country that if you offer a scholarship, they'll come to Notre Dame. You don't even have to recruit them. You won't even have to go in their door. Their heart and soul lives with Notre Dame. There's 50% that really think they want to come to Notre Dame, but they're not sure. You have to sell them. There's another 20% that they think Notre Dame's great, but they're scared to death of Notre Dame because of the pressures of academics and athletics, and there's 10% that won't come because they don't want to be in that type of discipline. So we have to work at about 70%. 20% we're going to get for sure. The other 10% we aren't going to touch.
A question to my left.
Moving up here to the College Hall of Fame and using it as a practice field or as a summer camp?
We've discussed this move with Charlie Meacham and Paul Ritter, and we looked around up here one time. Currently, we're in litigation with the city, and by our lease, it states the city will provide the Cincinnati Bengals with a major league practice facility. And I suppose it would please them if we'd go out and build our own. But in the meantime, they have the obligation to do it, and we're going to wait and see how the litigation ends up.
I tried to find some agents to be in the audience, but then I thought you probably wouldn't like that, Paul. That there are some good agents, right or wrong?
Certainly. Agents have to be sort of put into categories. Some are lawyers. Some are just hustlers and really have no background whatsoever for doing what they're doing, other than they give some youngster, like one of your seniors, an automobile before he graduates and even before the last season starts. It's illegal. It's wrong. But then they get him to sign up with them, and then they want to negotiate for him. A lawyer, a man who doesn't take 5–10% of his hide, but say an hourly basis, guiding him, we respect those people. It's just doing it the right way as compared to, and some try to do it by way of the newspapers, try to tear you up in the newspapers, embarrass you, and things of that sort.
When you coached at Ohio State, scholarships didn't exist as they do today.
That's right.
It was a little different.
Jerry has 30 scholarships, and he has to pick the people he gives them to very carefully. we didn't have scholarships. We just had work programs. We provided them work over the summer, and we went out and got it from the state highway and things of that sort. And then we'd have these $50 a month jobs that different people would give us in the city of Columbus for the people who needed it. I went there. I said the boundaries of the state of Ohio are the boundaries of the university as far as I'm concerned. I'm after everybody who's good enough. And having come from Massillon, I knew who was good enough. And for this reason, our problems are a little different. I didn't have to worry about just 30 people and picking them just right.
And you didn't have to worry as much about the cheating that goes on. Maybe not deliberate cheating, but for every honest member of the Notre Dame alumni, the Ohio State alumni, there may be 10 or 12 who maybe don't consciously do something dishonest, but they want to help. They want their school to be the best possible football team ever. And they do things sometimes without thinking. And you can't control that, Jerry. You couldn't control that, Paul, if you're in that area right now.
Well, I don't think you have to at Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame is recognized as the kind of an institution where that just doesn't go on. You're talking about some of these outlaw schools that just run in kids from any place they can find them. A lot of junior college transfers and things of this sort. Anything to build up a quick program. And I don't mean to say something that's not right about this kind of a thing. There are some, I guess, that can't go directly to college from high school. But by and large, you don't have many of these.
We aren't allowed to have junior college transfers.
They get people that qualify to go to college. Mm-hmm. And that's for me.
You don't think JC transfers are a good idea?
I think there's some merit. There's some good people come out of it, too. But you also get a lot of people who are more interested in just going someplace to get good enough to get drafted in pro sports, be it football, basketball, you name it. And the basic things that you go to college for are secondary to them.
Football legends Paul Brown and Jerry Faust. We're at the College Football Hall of Fame at Kings Island. We're going to find out about these guys and what they're really like when Sidelines continues in a minute. Ago was when people were saying that Paul Brown had let the game pass him by, and there were those critics who said he should get out of it, that it was time for him to step down and let younger men, was the quote used, take over a game that had passed him by. How in the world could a man who had let the game pass him by ever allow the traditional Cincinnati Bengals to wear a helmet like this? This is very, very contemporary, Coach.
Well, thank you. It's caused the most attention that we've had given to us, possibly second only to Pete Johnson's weight. But really, the league office properties wants to get something where if you zoom in on it in television, you know right away the team it's playing. I go back to when the Los Angeles Rams put the horns on their bonnet, and people just rolled off their chairs laughing about such a ridiculous thing. Well, today we all wish we had that kind of an identification on television, and that's really what's behind this. Well, it could get us a couple touchdowns extra a game, but I'm not going to count on it.
Some other points to be made, Paul. If the game has in fact passed you by, why are you still in the competition committee in the National Football League? The committee that's one of the most important, the one that makes rules, that changes things to keep the game abreast with the seasons ahead. Obviously, you're a pretty hip guy, if you don't mind my saying.
Well, I never thought of it like that, but that statement was made something like 23 years ago. So you see, a lot has happened in the meantime. I am on the Rules Committee and Competition Committee, they call it, but I don't know, maybe they just need somebody on there to sprag some of these young people that got too many fancy quick get-rich-quick ideas.
I understand. Well, of course, if you win, it's a great helmet. If you lose, it's the helmet's fault.
Right.
Right?
Right.
A question to my right, please.
Coach Brown, the country this summer has been subjected to a baseball strike. And there's been a lot of unhappy feelings between players and owners. And I know that there's a lot of animosity now with the fans about returning to baseball parks. Now we're hearing that in 1982, we may face an NFL strike and no football. And what I was going to ask you is, do you think that the owners and the players have learned something in the NFL from the baseball people to try to avoid such a strike in '82?
Well, I can guarantee you the owners have watched it with interest, and we don't want a strike. At all costs, we don't want a strike. I hope our players have also observed that there can be, it's a no-win proposition. The leadership of the Players Association has been talking strike and wage scale and things of this nature, and I really don't know how such a thing, I don't know what's going to happen. Our negotiations don't start till after the season is over. But believe me, we don't want to bust anybody's union, and we don't want to be guilty of not, what do they call it, negotiating in good faith and all those things that come along if you don't get just exactly what you want. We want to get along, and we want it to be worked out, and I would be very, very disappointed if we didn't get it done.
Could I do one thing? Would you excuse me?
Certainly.
I want to introduce someone who has been very important to Paul Brown's life in the last few years. Help me welcome Mary Brown. Mary, stand up, please. One of the things I promised that I would do in this program, Mary, is find out what in the world really goes on with this guy. We see him at Spinney Field, we see him at Wilmington, we see him at the games. I see him in the golf course. Nobody's ever worked harder than making a par than this guy. Right. But tell me about him around the house. Is he crusty and cold and calculating like I keep reading, or what kind of guy is he?
No, he really isn't. He's just an ordinary guy. Very quiet. Yeah. We like the serenity of our redbird hollow, and we like to go out and hike at the nature center, and we like the zoo, and that's what an ordinary guy likes.
Just another guy who is a general manager of a football team, huh?
Well, when Paul comes in, football is not discussed. He
Never.
Puts it behind him until the next day.
Now, when you two play golf, how many shots does he give you?
None.
Oh, my goodness.
He makes me play every stroke. I don't get to count my, if I'm 11 and I should have had a 7, I take an 11. In other words, you adjust at the end of the game. I want to know what you shoot, you know.
Yeah. I get the feeling the Super Bowl is the one thing that would really make him real happy at this point.
I think it would make everybody happy.
Thank you, Mary. Mary Brown. I can't let either of you get away without addressing the question that I've mentioned a couple of times. Winning is easy. I mean, accepting the plaudits, the recognition from the media and the fans when you win is terrific. It has to be the all-time high for anybody who's in athletics. But when you lose, Paul, I know you go to the films and it's very, very evident. It's all there in black and white, but there's a human element. And I never, in all the years I watched you coach in Cleveland, I lived there when I was a kid, and now in the years when you've been here, I never remember seeing you show any kind of different emotion, whether you're winning or losing, whether you won a game or lost one. You kept the same profile. Is that something you worked on? Or did it just happen?
Well, certainly I didn't work on it. This is my nature, I guess you'd say. I always said to the guys in the team, when you lose, when you win, you say little, but when you lose, you say still less. It's the poise of the thing, and is just something that has to be maintained. The control of a football team while the game is in progress, I'm talking about calling signals and doing the right thing at the right time, the greatest possible number of times, to me, is really the artistry of the profession under the stress of a game. Well, when you do this and you're thinking and working at that, you don't have much time to get very thinking about the emotional aspects of it. It's a scientific proposition. And I know where I got that name of the cold, deadly, brutal, all that thing. When you play the New York Giants and you play a New York team, you get a moniker put on you, and that's how that all started. But
that goes way back.
That goes way back. Actually, it's your nature. You'll find that this young man here is going to show more emotion than I showed, and I think it's good, Jerry.
I think Landry's a lot like you, Tom Landry of the Dallas Cowboys, and two great coaches, you know.
Just it's nature to a large extent.
Yeah.
We know, you know, and I know, this guy had something to do with your job in Notre Dame. He was very, very important in the final analysis, talking with Moose and the other people up there who were making the decision. And I know that when Paul Brown speaks, people listen, if I can borrow a phrase. But it's true. This is the master. This is the guy who made many things work when people laughed at him. People said year-round coaches and platoons and the draw play and all those things. It all worked because of what he thought was the right thing. He has faith in you, Jerry.
Well, first of all, Coach Brown is probably is the greatest innovator of football that's ever lived, and there's been a lot of great innovators. Secondly, before we came down, I thanked him personally upstairs for his comments to Moose Krause, which really had a great impact on me getting the job at the University of Notre Dame. And I can't thank Coach Brown enough for not only his courtesy, but for his confidence in me. And it's great when someone like Paul Brown will say he thinks he can do the job. And